Our top story tonight, just a week after broadening the conditions that do not require COVID-19 tests, the government has said the number of COVID tests in the country has fallen and needs to be ramped up. Flagging declining tests in many states and union territories, the centre has asked for testing to keep an effective track on the pandemic so that proper action can be taken. A letter from the Health Ministry has ordered states to strategically increase testing, keeping in view the trend, the positivity trend in specific areas within those states. Now, a clear indication that testing has declined significantly comes from this graphic, which shows you how confirmed cases, while those numbers, those absolute numbers have declined, the positivity continues to rise. A clear indication that not enough testing is happening. Sukirti joining us with the latest on that big story. Sukirti, what does this letter from the Union Health Ministry to various states actually say? Does this in fact contradict ICMR guidelines issued earlier?
Well, Ankita, this particular letter from the centre's end to the state governments does not contradict the earlier ICMR guidelines. In fact, on the other hand, it mentions those guidelines and uses them to highlight the fact that irrespective of what the ICMR has said, the main objective continues to be the same, that early detection as well as isolation of cases is extremely important. It, however, cherry picks certain points from those guidelines, the ones that mention that symptomatic people need to be tested, high-risk contacts need to be tested. However, it does not mention those points that had created controversy around how asymptomatic contacts need not be tested. So it tries to skirt from that controversy, but the centre at this point of time making it very clear that states need to ramp up testing immediately. The ICMR portal, where all of these states upload their testing data, through that data collation, the centre says we have found that testing has reduced rapidly in several states, and that is why it's important to immediately ramp it up. And this is very important. This strategy is very important, especially to keep those areas under control which are densely populated or areas which could develop as new hotspots. So that is what the centre is making very clear at this point of time, and it is important that this development comes at this point, considering we had been hearing of reports from several parts, especially in Delhi, where asymptomatic people were struggling to get tested, even symptomatic people were struggling to get tested. But looks like after these guidelines, state governments will be taking up stricter measures to ensure that the number of tests go up.
All right, Sukirti, thanks so much for those details. Well, Delhi and Mumbai seem to have seen a sharp fall in COVID cases over the last 6 days. But there has been an uptick in hospitalizations in Mumbai, where hospital admissions have breached the crucial 10% mark. Hospitalizations are inching up in Delhi and the National Capital Region as well. However, there's a significant dip in hospitalizations in Kolkata, where positivity remains above 50%, as well as in Chennai.
Doctors and nurses around a COVID patient in Delhi. The hospitalization rates and rush are so far nothing like what was seen in the horrific second wave. But health officials are closely tracking this. NDTV analyzed the hospitalization numbers in the last 7 days, which has seen over 17 lakh cases. In Mumbai and Delhi, hospitalizations are seeing an uptick, even though cases have now fallen for several days consecutively. In Mumbai, it is up from 7% to 11%, and ICU rates have more than doubled to over 6%. 11% is just outside the 5 to 10% band that the Health Ministry had reported last week. However, the hospitalization rates from other states are still within this band. In Delhi, the uptick is from 2.9% to 3.2%. Although the ICU rate is marginal, it is still seeing an uptick from 0.7 to a shade under 1%.
So we need to keep a close watch. If the hospitalization rates are plateauing, are decreasing, it clearly confirms the declining trend of COVID positive cases in the country. But if the hospitalization rates are going up, then we have to increase the containment measures. We also have to look at the percentage of hospitalized patients requiring ICU care, because that clearly reflects the disease severity.
In fact, there is a dip in Kolkata despite as many as 1 in 2 tests turning up positive, and in Chennai the dip is more, from 8 to 5%. At the Guwahati Medical College and Hospital, the largest COVID care facility in Assam, occupancy of beds has gone down from 29% to 16% in 1 week.
So as a whole, these patients, as of now, who are admitted, are less on oxygen, less on ICU care. No patients are, only I think one patient now is on NIV. The rest of all the patients are on, in ICU are on or just simple oxygen. So as a whole, the symptoms which is being shown is more of the Omicron variety than the Delta variety.
During India's second wave, hospitals across India had run out of beds and even other basic resources like oxygen. And that is why this time the government as well as experts are repeatedly pointing out that we cannot let our guard down. Bureau report for NDTV.
Well, let's take a look at the two major metropolises. In Mumbai, daily COVID cases are down 71% since the 7th of January. In Delhi, that number has, daily COVID cases has gone down 28% since the 7th of January. 83% of 5,956 cases have been asymptomatic in Mumbai. Is the third wave then on its way out in Mumbai? Experts seem to think it's too early to say so, even though cases have been dropping over the last few days. Officials caution against early relaxations as numbers may be decreasing in the city or the metropolitan area, but rural areas are now showing a massive spike.
Mumbai's COVID cases are down sharply, especially in the last few days. Officials in the city are relieved.
2-3 दिन अगर इंतजार करेंगे तो हम निश्चित रूप से कह पाएंगे कि ये वेव नीचे जा रही है, लेकिन अभी हम जो आंकड़ों को देखते हैं तो निश्चित रूप से ये कहना पड़ेगा, ये कहना भी चाहिए कि आंकड़े निश्चित कम हो रहे हैं, पॉजिटिविटी रेट भी कम हो रहा है, ऑक्सीजन की रिक्वायरमेंट भी स्टेबल है.
Mumbai registered the highest number of COVID cases on January 7th with 20,971 cases. Now, daily COVID cases have declined by 71% as compared to that peak on January 7th. Active cases have currently decreased by 45% compared to January 7th. However, with new guidelines, testing has also come down from between 70,000 to 72,000 during the peak to about 50,000 now, which is a 30% drop. But what's a worry is that in the districts and rural areas, active cases have started rising sharply. And the third wave that started from Mumbai and Pune now seem to be hitting all 35 districts. There were 32,225 active cases in the state on the 1st of January, which has jumped to 2,67,334 active cases on the 17th, a jump of 730%.
जो छोटे शहर है और इस खास करके ग्रामीण इलाका है, वहां पर ये नियमों का पालन ठीक से नहीं हो रहा है और वैक्सीनेशन भी कम है, इसलिए अभी वहां पर ये कोरोना के मरीज ज्यादा पाए जा रहे हैं. महाराष्ट्र के मराठवाड़ा के कुछ जिले, नागपुर के, विदर्भ के कुछ जिले और जो कोंकण इलाका है जो मुंबई के करीब है, ऐसे रायगढ़ और पालघर जिलों में, और जो पश्चिम महाराष्ट्र है जहां पर कोल्हापुर, सातारा, सांगली, अहमदनगर, यहाँ पर भी ये केसेस ज्यादा करके पाए जाने लगे हैं.
Experts believe that the gradual decline in cases in big cities and the rise in small towns and rural areas means that the state will be in the grip of a third wave for some more time. With Pooja Bhardwaj in Mumbai, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
Assam has registered the sharpest ever single-day spike it's seen since the start of the pandemic after statewide celebrations for Bihu. While there's no lockdown in Assam, people who are not vaccinated against COVID-19 will now not be allowed entry into public places like government offices, malls and hotels. Ratnadeep Chaudhary reports.
Assam government has made it mandatory that no non-vaccinated people will be allowed to enter any public place other than hospitals, and therefore this checking is being done. The vaccine certificates are being checked.
After the Bihu break, employees returning to join work at government offices. It's now no vaccine, no entry rule for most public places in Assam, like government offices, supermarkets, malls, cinema halls and parks. People without vaccine certificates have been turned away. There are an estimated 20 lakh unvaccinated people without even a single dose. Only double vaccinated government employees can attend offices.
आजकल तो मास्क कोई पहनता ही नहीं है, जब आदमी देखता है तभी मास्क पहनता है, नहीं तो पहनता ही नहीं है। और आदमी लोग ऐसे भी बोल रहे हैं, कोई बोल रहा है वैक्सीन का एक राजनीतिक हुआ है, कोई वैक्सीन से तो कोई आदमी मरा नहीं।
We are allowing only the people who are double vaccinated. কোনোবা যদি নাই, then they have to return মানে তো আমি ভ্যাকসিন সার্টিফিকেট চেক কৰি আছো। We are ensuring that people are wearing masks both inside and যোন বাহিৰৰ পৰা আহে তেখেতসকলকো then given sanitizers and all that আমি দি আছো। আৰু আমাৰ staff everyone is vaccinated.
Assam is seeing a surge in positive cases. On Monday, nearly 7,000 cases were reported, a record high. Just after the state celebrated Bihu, its harvest festival. Between January 13 to 17, over 10,000 cases were reported. Positivity rate climbed about 3%. The silver lining, hospitalization has dipped to under 15 from almost 17.
Definitely this is overcrowding due to Bihu and the festivals and any other meetings or any crowding in the malls or any other places. Omicron is a highly spreadable disease.
In the past couple of days, number of people turning up at COVID screening centers in Assam has increased, indicating that the virus is spreading fast. Doctors attribute this to more public gathering as well as the nature of the Omicron variant.
In Guwahati with camera person Sanjay Chakravarti, this is Ratnadeep Chaudhary for NDTV.
Well, on to all the other big stories of the day. First, a new Chinese bridge being constructed across the Pangong Lake is now more than 400 meters long and once completed will give Beijing a significant military edge in an area that's been a key flashpoint between India and China in eastern Ladakh. Vishnu Shom has this exclusive report with the first high-resolution satellite images of this new bridge.
This is the new Chinese bridge being constructed over the key Pangong Lake flashpoint in eastern Ladakh. It's 8 meters wide, over 400 meters long so far, and once completed will give Chinese forces the ability to position troops and weaponry on either bank of the lake in double quick time. Satellite images from the 16th of January, just a couple of days back, that you see here show the bridge, a heavy crane being used for its construction over what is now a frozen Pangong Lake. Chinese troops from the North Bank will no longer need to drive nearly 200 kilometers around the lake to reach their main base at Rutog. That journey will be cut by a whopping 150 kilometers. This is where the bridge is being constructed, in an area where India held until 1958. This lies approximately 35 kilometers from areas where India and China faced off on the south bank of the Pangong Lake last year. Before construction of this bridge, this is the route Chinese soldiers took along their existing road network to get from one bank to the other. They will now use the bridge and a new road being constructed on the south bank. This new road will also have a link to those areas where last year's standoff between soldiers took place. In a statement on the construction of the bridge, the External Affairs Ministry says the bridge is being constructed in areas that have been under illegal occupation by China for around 60 years now. As you are well aware, India has never accepted such illegal occupation. While Indian and Chinese forces backed off from their hair-trigger alert and de-escalated tensions on both banks of Pangong Lake in February last year, the construction of the new bridge is a clear reminder of how China continues to build up access in areas which it may consider as potential future flashpoints. Vishnu Shom for NDTV.
On to battleground Punjab, and Bhagwant Mann is the Aam Aadmi Party's chief ministerial candidate for the state. Arvind Kejriwal announced the results of a tele-voting drive in which people were asked to phone in their choice for the top post. Mann received 93% of votes cast through phone and WhatsApp, but around 3% of votes were for the Congress's Navjot Singh Sidhu.
पंजाब के अगले सीएम और आम आदमी पार्टी का सीएम चेहरा औपचारिक रूप से सरदार भगवंत मान को डिक्लेयर करते हुए
Bhagwant Mann gets emotional as the Delhi Chief Minister finally names him as the AAP's Chief Ministerial face, ending weeks of uncertainty. The AAP chief claims Mann overwhelmingly won an unusual phone-in public poll conducted by the party to pick its Punjab CM candidate.
लगभग 21,59,437 लोगों ने अपने रिस्पांस दिए। उसमें 93.3% लोगों ने सरदार भगवंत मान का नाम लिया।
Despite his popular appeal, naming Maan has not been easy for AAP. The former stand-up comedian and two-time MP from Punjab Sangrur has often made headlines for his maverick behavior, especially his excessive drinking. In 2019, Maan had to publicly take an oath to keep off alcohol. Today he told NDTV all such allegations are baseless.
वो उनके पास और कुछ है ही नहीं बोलने को शरद जी। मतलब कोई मेरे पे करप्शन नहीं कर सकते, कोई मेरे पे कोई ईडी नहीं भेज सकते, इनकम टैक्स नहीं भेज, तो साफ सुथरी इमेज है। मैं तो अभी भी किराए के मकान में रहता हूँ, ठीक है ना। लेकिन हाँ ऐसे भगवंत मान तो ऐसे 11 साल से कह रहे हैं, उसके बाद तो पब्लिक ने मुझे इतनी बड़ी बड़ी जीत दी है।
But the challenges will be great, including fulfilling AAP's ambitious election promises.
कोई लंदन, पेरिस, कैलिफोर्निया के सपने हम उन देख चुके हैं, वो झूठे सपने थे। तो दोबारा पंजाब को पंजाब बनाने के लिए मेरे हाथ में कमान दी है, तो आज के बाद तालियां भी मेरी हैं तो गालियां भी मेरी हैं।
AAP's political rivals, however, called the nomination of Maan a stage-managed non-event.
ਜਦੋਂ ਪਿਛਲੇ 1 ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੇਜਰੀਵਾਲ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਦੀ ਭਗਵੰਤ ਮਾਨ ਨਾਲ ਬੈਠਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਚਿਹਰਾ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਚੰਗਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ। ਅਖੀਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਆਮ ਆਦਮੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਜਾਣ ਨੂੰ ਤਿਆਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੇ ਮਜਬੂਰਨ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਆ ਗਿਆ, ਕੋਡ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ, ਹੁਣ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਆ ਗਿਆ, ਹੁਣ ਟਾਈਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਭਗਵੰਤ ਮਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਚਿਹਰਾ ਬਣਾਇਆ।
By choosing Maan, Aam Aadmi Party finally has a CM face in Punjab, unlike the last time. But will the maverick leader be able to put Aam Aadmi Party in power in Punjab? In Chandigarh, Mohammad Ghazali for NDTV.
A day after the Supreme Court dismissed an appeal filed by Devas Multimedia challenging a court order to wind up the company, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said the 2005 deal was a proven fraud and the government would ensure that the Supreme Court's verdict is now used internationally to highlight this fraud and save taxpayers' money, which could otherwise have been used in paying off Devas.
That it was a fraud upon the people of India, a fraud on the treasury of India, and a fraud against the country. Just a proof of how repeatedly the Congress party, when in power, misuses its position. Allows blatant selling of resources of the government, resources of the people of India for pittance.
A quick reminder of what the Antariksh Devas deal was all about. In 2005, a deal for satellites was signed between Antariksh, that's the commercial arm of ISRO, and Devas, a Bengaluru-based startup. Now, Antariksh agreed to build and launch 2 satellites and lease 90% transponder capacity to Devas. In 2011, that deal was cancelled by the UPA, citing security reasons. In 2020, a US court ordered Antariksh to pay $1.2 billion to Devas. And in November of 2020, the Supreme Court stayed the US court's order, and the Supreme Court later upheld the NCLAT's verdict on winding up that deal. The Supreme Court yesterday also upholding that judgment. Brent crude oil prices hit a more than 7-year high as optimism over global recovery returned to trading floors. But there were also supply disruption concerns. Sakshi Bajaj reports.
Oil prices surged to a 7-year high on worries of possible supply disruptions after Yemen's Houthi group conducted a drone attack in the United Arab Emirates. With Brent crude at $87 a barrel, experts also remain certain Omicron will not be as disruptive as feared and won't hurt fuel demand. However, in India, fuel prices have remained unchanged for over 2 months now. Less than a month ago, this wasn't the case globally. Brent crude prices fell as much as $72 a barrel after surging Omicron cases, led to investors fearing the spread will hit fuel demand. While reports suggest Saudi Arabia's energy minister says he's always comfortable with oil prices, the spotlight is now on February 2nd, as the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and the non-OPEC members meet to discuss production strategy and indicate whether crude supply will be increased or not. Sakshi Bajaj for NDTV.